as we kind of go through a little bit of risk, we'll go through some more risk here. I've got a couple tools here to help you, hopefully identify some of the risk here quickly, quickly with it. Excuse me. One of the things that I see here a lot, and I know it's really simple to say executive focus, but really executives must be engaged here. They've got to set direction, priority, budgets, expectations about some of their business. I've had CEOs of companies of 500, 1,200 people tell me, if there's a disaster, I'm just closing down shop. If my building burns, I'm closing the business down. Okay, well, that's good to know, because then we won't worry about that risk. What is their expectation on these risks, on these challenges that you've got to deal with, on how fast things have to be up? So you've got to have that focus. You've got to have that understanding. Don't let it just fall on you like you're supposed to make this stuff up. Seek some clarity and keep them engaged. Look at the impacts. Analyze what the actual risk is. Review that information with them. What are we really worried about? How fast do I really have to have things up? How old can the data be? Do I have to worry about users or not? Get their approval, and then execute, and then bring it back to their approval as you're executing it along the way. So keep them involved, because things will change, and you're going to need some tiebreakers. Next, please, Tom. As you kind of go through that idea of the focus, here's some areas that you need from the executive team, from the IT team, and maybe a combination of both. Okay? So executive team's got to help you find out what is critical, how old can the data be, how fast do you want me up, and where do you want me to be. That DR location is, once again, what am I trying to mitigate? Okay? Tell me what I'm trying to do here for my DR plan. And I've had non-risk things come into play. We had a Christian organization that put together a DR plan. They were based out of California. Their DR site, they didn't want to have it in Salt Lake City. They didn't want to have it in Las Vegas. We ended up putting them down in Phoenix. It was all around the idea of what the executives and their perception of where they want to have their DR location. So bring it up about that DR location. You need their feedback on it. Technical team, we need to know number of servers, data storage, connectivity, security, all these things that come into play with it. We need to be able to gather that stuff to have an idea of the impact and the capacity and the capabilities on those particular critical applications. It's tough. A lot of people don't have these things documented. We're really not sure where all the applications are. We're not sure how all the applications maybe even work, because they've been in play for such a long time. So this is a challenge as IT looks at it, goes, okay, how am I going to meet those business requirements? Executive in IT, I need to have a plan. This isn't just IT come up with a plan. It needs to be both teams, the business unit managers, executives in IT really, to come up with this plan, because they've got to commit to it. When they go out and buy something new next time or roll out a new application, is this part of my DR or not? How am I supposed to deal with my change management here? How am I supposed to test it? Okay, so these are some very basic things that these teams have to bring to the table to help you get an idea of the direction that you need ahead. Next, please, Tom. When you kind of do this, this is a 10-second risk assessment. Very easy here thought. If you're walking into an environment and they say backup, and they say backup on tape, you're probably looking at hours and days on your RPO, RTO time. You're not even in the hours. If it's less than 24, I'm challenging on. You're probably looking at 24 to 72 hours if everything is set up right. So if I walk into an environment, or if you're looking at your own environment and you hear your IT or your own people saying, I've got backups and I've got them on tape, I've got challenges now on how my RPO time is and how my RPO and my RTO time is. If it's less than 24 hours, you're probably not going to make it. Okay? Expectations could be off there. If I go in to hear things like replication, I'll ask about replication. I'll ask, okay, so what is replication? Now replication, I've got a chance, if we're all talking the same thing here, I've got now a chance to make it within minutes and hours, if not seconds, on some of my RPO times. So look at this very, very quickly. Be okay with the idea that when a disaster happens, that this isn't just, hey, how long does it take for me to recover a file? This brings into play of how long does it take for me to recover the system, and how am I backing that up, and how am I recovering it? Okay, next please. So 10-second risk thing. This is always kind of funny. I think this is probably about our whole DR strategy across the world at times. There are a lot. Can you imagine how many DR plans are up on people's shelves? And when the disaster actually happens, this is what happens. No one's going to grab that. Very few people grab that book and start thumbing through it like it's going to give you guidance. People probably don't even have that book available. So what I really get with people is think with the end in mind. How am I going to execute this? Down to the detail level. Who's going to do it? Do they know how to do it? Do they know what to do? If they're not there, can somebody else help? Can somebody else do it? So when I think of some of the disaster recovery planning, it almost feels this way at times, that you could go through a bunch of planning, but the planning is so off base from reality about how it's going to get done, they just scream help. Next.